We have heard it with our ears, O God. Our ancestors have told us what you did in their days, in days long ago. With your hand you drove out the nations and planted our ancestors. You crushed the peoples and made our ancestors flourish. It was not by their sword that they won the land, nor did their arm bring them victory. It was your right hand, your arm, and the light of your face, for you loved them.
It was spring quarter of 1971. They had a benefit for a guy named Bob Scott. There was a defense fund set up, and at that point, Eileen Cherry, who was facilitator of FMO's cultural affairs, decided, well, let's have some music. So literally, 15 students got together, Stanley Davis rehearsed them, and they performed at this legal benefit for Bob Scott. And so that's the only thing they did that spring quarter. It didn't have a name, just students getting up and singing.
Great God Almighty, great God Almighty, holy went to plead. Yes, the holy went to plead. Great God Almighty, Captain, don't you kill me. Great God Almighty, Captain, don't you kill me. Great God Almighty.
So that starting a choir meant a lot of commitment and a lot of time, and I wasn't certain that I had the commitment or the time, because academically this was a very rigorous place. And at the time that Eileen approached me she said that the Lord showed her and told her that I was the man for the appointed hour. And my response to that was, and I'm sure she would get a laugh, I said, well, the Lord didn't tell me that. I didn't hear from him. And I told her no. I told her no 3 times. FMO brought to this campus Robert Ray and the University of Illinois Champaign-Urbana Black Chorus. And they were presented in concert in Alice Millard Chapel. They came 173 strong. They serenaded, they worshiped, they had church up in Alice Millard Chapel. And that really, Cherry was with me, and I was like, wow, that's incredible. And I looked at Cherry and I said, we could do that. We don't need that many folk. I was never into numbers. I was into quality.
So literally, fall quarter of 71 came, Stanley was in place, Eileen was in place, Clifton Gehring gave a lot of moral support, and he says, we're going to have it. So they had auditions, and it became the Northwestern Community Ensemble. Northwestern because all 3 of the founders are from Northwestern, but at that point, right on Orrington Avenue, right near Lincoln, used to be Kendall College. That's no longer here anymore, and of course there was National College of Education, now National Lewis. Because black folks were very few in all 3 institutions, we had students who came in auditions from those other 2 campuses, and that's why we became the Northwestern Community Ensemble, because we reached out.
The original choir, after the first auditions in the month of April, which led up to May 8th, there were only 15 of us, and we had 4 parts.
So the evening of music was after they held fall auditions. That was their debut concert as an organization. We had a lot of difficulty because as an African-American group, there was some resistance here by Alice Millard for us to perform here. There were covenants that were part of giving to institutions or buildings here on campus that limited the race of people who could be there. So some eyebrows went up when we said, well, we're the new black choir at Northwestern. We want to sing in Alice Millard.
We were frustrated because we couldn't rehearse on the campus. The powers that be, when we approached them, said, well, you're not a student organized or student recognized group approved by ASG and SAFB. And in order to be one, you must have a faculty advisor. We looked at faculty members over in the School of Music who we thought could be a faculty advisor. First of all, there were no black faculty members in 1971. I thought we could do this ourselves. Clifton was really the force. We don't need them. You know, he had this, basso profundo voice. We don't need them. You know, we can do this ourselves. A number of men and women who are part of Garrett's theological studies gave us seed money of $750 to get the choir started. Gave us $750. I will never forget that.
I sing because I'm happy. I sing because I'm free. His eye is on.
We had to find a place to rehearse, to audition, and again, Stanley had a contact with Ebenezer AME Church, 1919 Emerson Street. Every Saturday we'd go over there, we'd go up into the upper room of the choir loft, and that's where we prepared for the evening of music. And for many, many years we continued to rehearse there until we became more and more involved with the university.
Even after Northwestern gave us approval, the choir continued to rehearse at Ebenezer until...
To thank Ebenezer, the choir started singing there every second Sunday, hands down. And then Second Baptist on Benson says, well, we'd like you to. So we developed a thing called College Day. It was every quarter when we would be singing at Second Baptist, and as many students from Northwestern would come, and it would be a celebration of the college life here.
All of Second Baptist's choirs were sat down. Northwestern Community Ensemble was the choir in the choir loft.
We distinguished ourselves because in the 70s, everybody was doing a black choir. Northern Illinois, University of Illinois, Champaign-Urbana, Circle Campus, all these institutions up north were having black choirs. So it was very unusual when we go to places and we sing. Instead of just getting into gospel, we'd start with an introit. We'd process in. We'd have anthems, we've had spirituals, usually did an intermission and came back with gospel. And in the early years, that distinguished NCE over any other black choirs in the Midwest that we called our contemporaries. And then during the week, we were all doing everything. We weren't music majors per se. We had people in tech. We had people who were in journalism. We had people who were in pre-law, the sciences. Heavy-duty majors, still keeping their grades up, but devoting a heck of a lot of time in it. So in the early years, we actually had spring tours. So when spring break came, not only did we expand it outside of that, we would do a crazy thing. In like 10 days, we'd do 7 concerts in maybe 4 or 5 cities. Literally getting on the bus when finals were over on that Friday and going. And so because we were at a national university with people from all over, people were glad to bring NCE to their home church. We went down, it was a competition, and we'd get up there with schools from Mississippi State. You know, very traditional black choir, you know, they have a buxom soul that's belting out a song and all this type of stuff. A lot of soul, a lot of classic gospel, and NCE gets up. We sing an anthem, a spiritual, and a gospel. The room is silent. We win the Warworth Award, hands down, $1,000 reward. A proud moment when we took the flavor, anthem, spirituals, and gospel, and wowed them at the National Black College Workshop and winning.
So Stanley talks about the beginning of the choir. Think about now, 40 years later, how many ministers have come from the choir? How many ministers of music have been in the choir? How many doctors, lawyers, and then there's the rest of us Indians who've done things, but the choir has just spread out across the country.
So when we talk about NCE, we've calculated over the last maybe 39, 40 years of everybody who comes in. Some people sing all 4 years, some people sing 1 quarter. Doesn't matter. We have to have literally thousands of people who have come through. And because of the evolution of becoming more than just a singing group, but a musical ministry, which we started out with, that outreach now includes people who are just not black. They're white, they're Asian. And that's the evolution when you have a musical ministry that's bigger than one person, that's bigger than just one group of people on campus. But yet and still, this whole idea that started humbly as just a black choir continues to get attention, continues to get people's involvement, continues to make a difference, continues to bring people together. That's what's so special about this 40th.
There's a need to tell the story. We have to tell the story, because if we don't, it's going to get lost, or at worst, it's going to get rewritten. I encourage the choirs that come, the generations following, pass it on.